Ed, I never see you without a smile on your face. I don't know why. It looks like you all, either you're eating happy pills or you're just a jolly fellow. I don't know, but I've never seen you without a smile on your face.
I've had that for a long time, Mel.
Too much Botox.
Mel,
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as my
I get
intrepid co-host has pointed out, we are at the top of the hour. I'm just going to set up the share screen here if I can. There we go. And share screen. Now, hopefully not if you can all see that, or say something if you can all see that.
That's good.
Okay.
Yes.
So one of the things that I wanted to look at today is something that came up in a discussion. And we've done about 4 or 5 sessions on isolated site. Ed Foote has come in, Dave Prescott has come in. We've talked about isolated site choreographic management. We talked with Jerry Story about isolated site and choreographic management. And getting that concept, which is 2-couple dancing, which is really, really good. And it's an important foundation skill because it builds on other foundation skills. You heard what we were saying with Daryl there about working in the grid and the simplicity of working in the grid. A lot of that comes into the fore as part of the isolated site concept. What I wanted to look at today was expanding that isolated site concept into confident control with positive partner pairing. And the title itself, although a bit of an alliteration, is about watching one couple in a square. And that's all you have to watch. You don't have to watch your pairs, your key couples. You don't have to keep them side by side. It's a method of control that will give you a little bit of flexibility. So I'm going to talk about that today, but before we start, what we're going to do is, there we go. We're going to do a very, very quick review on isolated site because I want to make sure that these concepts are there. Now, what we're going to talk about may seem like a different concept, but it's really a more sophisticated expansion of the concept of isolated site. And what we're going to do is review those principles quickly. And as we go through this and we start getting into positive partner pairing, you're going to see how the techniques complement and build on each other. Okay. Isolated site itself is a technique to isolate or separate 2 couples in a square. And in theory, the method of isolated site is to move the selected or isolated dancers through the choreography while keeping them in a relatively collected position that is separate from the other dancers. And as long as there's not another dancer in that group of 4, you've got an isolated site technique no matter where you put them on the square. And this is one of the easy ways of moving around the grid as well. In keeping those 2 couples isolated or separate from the other dancers, it's possible to use a lot of choreography and a lot of choreographic maneuvers and sequences because most calling is 2-couple calling. So in basic terms, what we're saying is isolated site is a 2-couple people mover technique used in conjunction with a complete square. And it's the application of 2-couple dancing only if it's done with a full square moving at the same time. You're reliant on that mirror image concept. You basically only work with 2 chosen couples, ignore the rest. You do what you want and due to that mirror image, they don't really interact unless you want them to. Now, the primary advantages of isolated site were, and still are, the technique allows the caller and the dancers to concentrate on specific nuances of choreography without having to worry about the rest of the square. That's the mirror image, but one half does, the other half does. We've got the snapshot, which is sometimes referred to as a burnt image. That aspect allows the caller a very quick path to get to a resolution in case of any difficulty. You've got that snapshot in your mind, you know that, hey, if I keep these 4 together and I've got that paired couple on the outside, that square is resolved no matter if I'm in the north, south, east, or west quadrant. It facilitates easy teaching of movements because most square dancing is 2-couple dancing. It gives the caller the advantage of really only concentrating on the selected or the isolated couples when using other crossover movements or interactives such as Ferris wheel, centers, pastor, or the chicken plucker, or interactive throwaway modules. You know, you're just geographically moving them around as a group of 4. And it also allows the caller to concentrate on the isolated dancers while giving the dancers that feeling of a total dance interaction. It's a very, very powerful foundation tool. Like all things, it does have some disadvantages. It can easily lead to overflow or redundant choreography if the caller is unprepared or if the dancer ability is limited. It's also susceptible to becoming a caller crutch, and therefore it becomes predictable to dancers when new material is being introduced. They know, oh, he's paired up that couple. Oh, we're going to move with this group of 4. We're just going to move to different locations, maybe do an 8-chain-4 to interact, but we're all dancing together. They see that very quickly. And it also can lead to very long routines if you're not careful. Because it's such a powerful tool and a successful tool, callers tend to feed on that success and just keep going. And now, just to recap the previous session, how it works in terms of two-couple calling, even with the use of interactives like Ferris wheel centers pass-through or scoot backs, flip-flop like 8-chain-4 or 0 modules, isolated site really has, what do we got here? Got the wrong slide on there. Okay, it's really got 5 parts to it. And that is, you're going to set up. Oh, it's got 3 parts, the setup, the action, and the resolution, but there's really 5 steps to it. The setup is basically, I'm taking a static square, I'm calling head square through, and I'm taking a setup. There's my paired couple on the outside, there's my 2 dancers on the inside. Those are the 4 I'm going to focus on. That's my setup, that's my snapshot position. If I get that paired couple on the outside, that square is resolved. The action is isolating our 2 couples and using choreography with interactives to dance the dancers around the square. When we're ready, we do a half a chicken plucker, we take another snapshot. We can do a little bit more, and then we do a half chicken plucker and we come back. That's working back and forth across the grid. And we can rubber band that group of 4, you know, right and left through, veer left. Oh, they're still together. Couples circulate. Oh, they're still together, but they're on the other side. Bend the line, they're still together in a line because there's a rubber band around it. It gives them that feel. And then finally, we've got the resolution. And the resolution, when we're ready to resolve, you know, either in a corner box or partner line. Corner box, the key couple is on the outside. Partner line, the key couple's on the left. The square is resolved. It's a very, very simple, easy interactive tool. The next one is the grid resolution, and it's a very, very powerful tool. It's part of almost every resolution technique that we have. The technique is easy and it's been discussed numerous times. It's also a component part of the basic resolution technique and a basic part of choreographic management techniques. It too is a 3-step process. You pair up a couple, doesn't matter which one, but it's usually the key couple. You put them on the outside and you bring their corner to them. That's a real simple concept. And it's a very important concept because when we talk about positive partner pairing, it's going to be one of the key concepts to success. And most callers have this in their toolbox. There's a lot of variety in the endings, but this is a simple foundation technique in almost every caller's toolbox. And the idea is to keep it simple. Keep it very easy for yourself at the start, because the variety in the positions that you end up in is going to add variety to the dancers. So you don't have to expand that toolbox into other variations until you're ready and you're comfortable. Keep it simple and expand later. But let's just quickly have a look at this. So if these are going to be some of the situations that you'll be in, and you notice these are all standard couples, and that's important because star through or slide through is one of our basic movements. So in this first one where my cursor is, what's a get out for there? Quickly. And you just shout them out. I want to bring the corner to the paired couple.
Square, slide through, square through 3. Allemande
Or
left.
how about just Allemande left?
Allemande left.
Okay. I've got the paired couple. Okay, I've got the paired couple on the inside. The idea is to put the paired couple on the outside and resolve the square. How do I do that?
Left square through
RL.
2.
Pass to the center.
Sorry?
Pass to the center.
Sorry, you're garbled. I got passed through something.
Pass to
Left
the
through.
It was passed to the center.
Oh, pass to the center and then what?
Center square through 3.
Just
Center
a right
square
and left
three.
through.
Or right and left through. Absolutely. That'll put them there to get you set up. Put the paired couple on the outside. I bring the corner. How about this one? We're in a trade by formation.
Everybody partner trade.
Everybody
Yeah.
partner trade? Absolutely. Or center square through 3 outsides trade.
It's
How about this one? Double pass through formation.
partner trade.
Partner
You
trade.
can
And centers pass through.
through.
Yep.
No, centers are already passed through.
How about a
Everybody partner trade and then the centers pass through.
Yep.
a
Everybody
clove-
trades, centers pass through, or leads trade, square through 3 trade by. All sorts of different things can happen.
Is it
Here's
clover
another
leaf
one.
square through 3 a little too difficult?
Sorry?
Clover leaf and square through 3. Center square through 3.
Cloverleaf doesn't, yeah, cloverleaf wouldn't keep these guys paired. They'd be on the opposite side of the square. Remember, we want to keep it simple. We've got, this couple is paired. We don't want to separate this pairing.
Because
In this one, we want to keep it simple. There's hundreds of different ways to get out of this, but keeping it simple.
keep it
In
simple.
this
Yeah.
one,
We could do a
centers
face,
trade. Yeah,
we could
what-
do a face in and box the net.
Half
Yeah,
a chicken
yeah.
plucker, Alaman left.
Half a chicken plucker, Alaman left, square through 3 trade by, Alaman left, yep. Or centers trade and pass through. In this one, we've got them on the inside.
Zoom. No,
Here.
Zoom would
by.
be very, very harsh there. And
Trade by.
Partner trade pass through
Okay.
trade by.
yeah, or we're in a trade by position, trade by. Square through 3, trade by. See, the options are very, very easy as long as you keep that paired couple together. And this one,
Square
We
through on the
can't see
third
it.
hand Dixie Grand.
no, well, yes, but we're not trying to get clever. All we're doing is putting that paired couple on the outside and bringing the corner to them. Foundation, basic foundation skills. You got to remember what we're
Okay.
doing is looking at this from a brand new caller perspective. We have to go with what a new caller understands, and that is pair up the key couple, put them on the outside, bring the corner to them.
How about a zoom and centers pass through Alaman left?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That'll work. So, and now as you can see, these are basic foundation grid resolution skills. As you gain an experience, more options become available to you. For instance, face in. everybody
Karen, the
block
mailman
on
came.
that.
This was out there.
That would you.
All right.
I saw him walk by.
Okay.
So there's lots and lots of options, but if you keep it simple to start, it's easy to build. So the next part, what we're going to look at is confident control with positive partner pairing. The methodology is almost the same, but it takes practice and it takes concentration. Believe it or not, it's harder to remember 2 people when they're moving than it is to remember 4 people, mainly because what I'm asking you to look at is set aside what you know and realize that a pairing doesn't have to be side by side. All we want to do is make sure that 2 dancers, 1 couple, is together in a group of 4. Okay, and it's hard to remember because you've got to change your focus to include a separation of the dancers when you're watching. The method, however, is really quite simple. It starts the same. You identify 2 couples in your square, 1 head couple, 1 side couple. You choose one to be a primary, the other to be a secondary. I personally find it easy to choose my number 1 and my number 4 because that's what we've been trained to do at the beginning. Why change it? But some lady callers find it a lot easier to use number 1 and number 2. It doesn't really matter. The principle is exactly the same. The action is to move the dancers around, but always ensure your key couple is in an identifiable foursome, either together or separated. Is not important as long as they're somewhere in that group of four. It could be a line, they could be on the ends, they could be in the center, they could be separated by one, or they could be partners. It doesn't matter. You're only looking at two dancers in a group of four. That's what you want to keep together. Now, that's harder than you think, and it takes practice. But once you know it, you're going to wonder why you never noticed this before. You can focus on the choreography now, and that's one of the strong advantages, and not on the arrangement, not on the sequence, and not on the relationship. All we're focused on is the formation and two dancers in whatever formation we are. You just have to be able to change your perspective of that line is now a box, or we've got four dancers on one side, we've got four dancers in a line. The same principles of isolated sight, but we're only concentrating on two dancers, one couple, your key couple. And the resolution, it's the same resolution technique that we've already talked about. When you're ready, you get into any facing line with the positive partners opposite each other. You call star through or a slide through, and then you're on that grid pattern for that resolution that's been drilled into us. Use whatever it is that you have. And those formations that we just looked at a minute ago, those are really your options. That's all you've got. There's not a lot of other things that can happen. What you have is the advantage of control. The caller gets to concentrate on choreographic flow. You're not focused on resolution. You're not focused on arrangement. You're not focused on sequence. You're not focused on relationship. You're only focused on the flow of the dance. Okay. I'm going to tell you this now. You may not believe me, but there will always be one positive pairing, either the primary or the secondary, no matter what the formation, arrangement, sequence, or relationship. There's always going to be one positive pairing, one movement away if it's not there. It's impossible to get far enough away from your dancers. And we've done this in a number of cases at some of the caller schools or workshops that I've been at. I don't get them to pair up key couples. To prove the point, what I try and do is I get them to try and separate key couples. Take a minute sometime and do that exercise. Don't try and pair people. Try and separate them. You'll get a new perspective of how hard it is to get dancers far away that you can't find them. Getting to facing lines is easy. That's one of the basic techniques we learn in all sorts of resolutions, is to get to a basic line, a facing line. From there, getting your primaries to face each other is even easier. There's really only four options, and they're going to cover any situation you're in. If you're on the same side of the line, it's a ladies chain effect, such as a flutter wheel or a reverse flutter wheel or a ladies chain. If they're on different sides, ends and centers, pass through, bend the line. They're going to be facing. If they're both on the ends in the same line, or if they're both in the center, pass through, bend the line. Your primary couple is going to be facing. If they're separated by one, so you've got the partner, another dancer, the partner, you can do a pass through, half tag, slide through, that'll pair them up in facing lines, or any other combination that's going to pair them up in lines so that they're facing. And facing lines when they're not opposite, pass the ocean, those facing out, run. That will always, those four things will always pair or put your key couples together. These four possibilities allow you to set up what seems like to the dancers multiple get outs, regardless of what the arrangement, regardless of what the sequence, and regardless of what the relationship is. But in truth, what you're simply using is getting them opposite, star through, and using that simple grid pattern resolution after you get them facing. Once you get them facing, star through or slide through, you're on that grid resolution, and it's a nice, simple process. By moving them in and out of boxes and lines, paired, separated, you hide these pairings, so it's not obvious to the dancers that you're keeping couples together like it is when you are doing, after a while, an isolated site. It gives you the flexibility for teaching and moving the dancers around to interact and have confidence. And when you're confident as a caller, your dancers are going to feel your confidence, and they're going to be confident dancing to you. You're going to be confident teaching, they're going to be confident learning, and full square interaction is easier. It also allows you to have a quick termination of your sequences by getting to that. Sorry, who is that? I think that's you, Brian. I've just muted you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. I've been having trouble with my microphone and I just didn't know whether it was working. My
it was definitely working.
my lens is a little dirty. That's what I was doing, just cleaning it. And I think it still needs to be
No worries.
cleaned a bit.
Okay. But you're going to have to put yourself on mute, Brian, when you're doing that. Because that's all we
Is it
can
coming
hear.
through loud, is it? Sorry about that.
Very loud.
Where was I? Okay, yeah, so it allows you to get out quickly because you get to that facing line, you pair them up opposite each other in a facing line, star through, and you're on the grid. You're only a couple of movements away from a resolution. It also allows you an easy switch to your secondary couple because there will be times, as we demonstrate in this little group down here, my key couple, the red hats, are not together. I can quickly switch to my alternate couple and move them around. And then my primaries are going to come together very quickly. Or once I'm a little more comfortable, I can resolve with my secondaries. The principle is exactly the same. So it allows you that additional flexibility. Like isolated sight with rubber banding, this expands on the concept and really gives the dancer that feel of the total extemporaneous sight calling. But the focus for the caller is on resolution. Oh, no, the focus for the caller goes away from resolution because resolution is not that important to focus on when you're calling a dance. Having the dancers have a comfortable, smooth, dancing, fun experience is important. And because of this technique, it allows you to focus on the choreography, on the dance, on the fun, not on resolution. The FASR relationship calling or any of the other calling techniques, they're focused on eventually getting you to that resolve or controlling the dancers through all the sequences. That's a lot to take in for a new caller. So take a step back, learn your foundations, then work on those other techniques. Basic and simple is good. Similarly, there's a couple of disadvantages. This is a concept that seems so simple, you'll wonder why it isn't taught at the beginning when you're learning to call. The reason we don't, well, let's put a note. The reason is because today, calling, the process of learning to call is taught backwards. We focus more on resolution, then we focus on the technicalities of choreography, then pushing the definitions and jumping the levels, and that's what makes a good caller. It's not. Dancers on the floor having fun is what makes a good caller because they're going to want to come back. The first reason this isn't taught is because it forces callers and teachers to go back to the foundations of basics and formation management and flow management, understanding the definitions and just moving the dancers around. The resolution becomes a secondary basic grid pattern get out that you will probably have already learned, and you've probably already got a lot of expansions on it. This is what we've seen already, but it forces you to go back as a new caller and say, this is what I know, instead of jumping to sight calling and crams and all these other kinds of things that are going to overwhelm me. It's a simple progressive step in your learning. The second reason, it's a change of perspective for callers to see a couple as paired when they're in a group of four, down in lines or in a box or in a column, where whether they're standing side by side or they're not standing beside, still being paired. They're in that same group of four. That's positive pairing. That's harder to grasp than the concept of a standardized pair, boy on the left, girl on the right, and both wearing red hats. Okay, it takes practice to change that perspective. So as you note on the slide, the key disadvantages are tracking a single pair. Takes practice to change the perspective of what is a pair. It too can become a crutch, and it's easy to hyper focus. You've got to learn to let go and move on. Okay. It's easy to lose a sense of time with dancers, and that can lead to long sequence, the same as with isolated site. So be very, very wary. If you getting to more than 15 movements in a sequence of calling, then you're probably stretching it a bit long. There's a tendency for callers to panic, especially new callers, when they lose that primary pairing, such as head square through, swing through, boys run. Oh my goodness, they're not in the same group of 4 anywhere. My primary couple is not in the same group of 4. Head square through, okay, they're on a line on the same side. We're in boxes, we're on the same side. Swing through, oh my God, we're on different sides. We're not in any possible group of 4. Okay. There's a tendency to panic. There's ways of dealing with that, and I've touched on, we'll touch on a little bit of them again later. But regardless of where you are, the beauty of this method is that the secret to success is your basic toolbox technique of making standard facing lines. Okay, almost every resolution technique, almost every dancing technique has you going from whatever formation you are to a line. And we should all know that. If we're in boxes, we call star through, you know, we do all sorts of different things. Pass the ocean, recycle. We can get to lines all sorts of different ways. From there, it's very easy to get partner pairings as opposites. So what we're going to do now is we're going to expand this idea into the next step. Now, although initially it may seem like we're taking a step backwards from isolated site, it's really taking a giant leap forward by expanding the isolated site concept and taking them into a single couple choreographic management. The idea is to follow a repeatable 3-step process. Step 1, identify your key couples, one head, one side. That's the easy part. We already know how to do it, so we don't have to worry about it. All we're doing is selecting a primary and noting a secondary as a backup panic in case we lose that head couples. We can just switch to the secondary, move them a bit, and they're going to be paired. Or switch to the secondary, call the same thing, and your primaries are going to be paired. It happens. It's that simple. The second part is the action, calling your choreography, but maintaining that partner pairing awareness in the formations. Notice I stress the formation because the arrangement, the sequence, and the relationship is not important. What is important is smooth, danceable choreography that your dancers succeed at and have fun at, that gives them that feeling of success. That's a lot more important to you as a caller than anything else. Keep them happy, they'll keep you employed with a desire to please them even more. And the third is the resolution. And that's a very simple, set up the lines with the partner opposite, use star through or slide through, then resolve using that basic grid type resolution. Me personally, I like slide through because it's sometimes that Alaman left is right there, or it gives you that option of straightforward grid pattern resolves with the key couples. Slide through, square through 3, or whatever, what have you, are going to present itself. Star through is sometimes awkward if the resolution is star through, right and left through. Ouch, painful. Slide through is more comfortable. That's just me personally. So what is a partner pair? This is the hardest part of the whole concept, understanding that your primary couple is part of a foursome. It's similar in concept to the rubber banding idea of isolated site, except you're only concentrating on 2 dancers. Regardless of the formation that you may get to, you're trying to keep them in a foursome. What this means the same on a general line, such as a wave, a line, or looking down one side of parallel boxes, or whatever the formation is. Remember, we don't care about the A, the S, or the R of Fazar, only that the partners are somewhere associated in a connected group of 4. Here they're connected. Here they're in a group of 4 on one side. Here they're in a group of 4 on a line. Here they're in a group of 4. Here they're in a group of 4. Here they're in a group of 4. They could be separated by one dancer and still be in a group of 4. That applies to lines, boxes, columns, waves, any formation. Generally, they're going to be paired. Sometimes they won't, and it's an easy fix. So what happens when we lose the pairing? This takes practice. And as you can see, it is possible to lose that partner pairing. It will happen. You're not going to be able to prevent it. Remember, don't panic. There are 3 things to remember when you lose that pairing. One is a circulate action. such as a chicken plucker or a circulate, depending on your formation, because we're concentrating on formations. Circulates are your friends in boxes and columns. Wheel and deal type actions are your friends for lines facing out. Because where you are in a line facing out, oh, look, they're not together. If I do a wheel and deal, guess what? They're in the same general line. And for dancers facing in, or sorry, for lines facing in, partner chain actions are really, really comfortable. So if I do a partner chain, such as a two ladies chain, I now have them in a group of 4 on the ends. If I do a flutter wheel or a reverse flutter wheel, I now have them in the same group of 4. 3 things: a circulate action, a wheel and deal, or a chain. Any of those will fix when you don't have a partner pairing. These are simple fixes that allow you to move the dancers around easy and keep your pairings. But remember, sometimes, just like all techniques, and this is the greatest lesson that any new caller or any experience can pass on to a newer caller, sometimes you have to just be ready to walk away. If you're working so hard to fix and find that pairing, you're not focused on the dancers. If the primary is lost, switch to the secondary for a moment and catch your breath, or throw in a flow module and relax. Let's say I get to this action and I try all sorts of things to pair them up and it's just not working. Throw in that pass through, wheel and deal, double pass through. First couple go left, next couple go right. Take a step back, take a breath, start over. And sometimes you just have to be ready to walk away. Remember, you already know how to move the dancers. You already know how to resolve on the grid. Repairing is repairing with flow. So repairing your key partner is repairing that square. If you remember it that way, you're not going to get in too much trouble. So let's start with a focus movement. It can be, actually, let's not do that because that shouldn't be in there. The last part is the resolution. Now there's a lot of complexity on that screen, but it's really quite simple when you look at it. Remember what I said about ignoring the A, the S, and the R when doing this? It's important that you remember that because it's very, very hard to let go. You don't need it up to this point because it simply doesn't matter. What you're concentrated with is getting the dancers into facing lines with your primary couple facing each other. From there, it's a star through or a slide through, which puts you on that grid to resolve with stuff you already know. These are where you can get to. And it doesn't matter if you notice some of these formations are boys together, standard couples, half sashayed couples, boy, boy, girl, girl, boy, boy, girl, girl, outside, inside. We can have paired couples. That's it. You can have one couple half sashayed, one couple paired. Doesn't really matter because as long as you get your key couple opposite each other, the next movement is what? Anybody?
Slide through.
Slide through.
Star through or slide through. Once you get them paired opposite each other, star through or a slide through, put you on that grid and any number of resolutions will present themselves. Use your known get-outs if you have some, or just use the simple grid. The beauty is because I'm not using the A, the S, or the R, these things are going to start happening all over the place. And if I call from this one, star through, oh, I can do a centers pass through, square through 3, trade by, centers pass through. Or I can do a star through, trade by, swing through, turn through, Alaman left. I can do all sorts of different things to get them back to their corner. That key couple is paired. All I got to do is dance them and bring the corner to them. Keep it simple. Because each one of these puts you in a slightly different arrangement and a slightly different formation, it's going to seem like you have hundreds of resolutions at your fingertips. The dancers are going to say, my God, he's dancing boy, boy, girl, girl. He's dancing boys in sequence, girls out of sequence, but dancing same-sex couple. He's dancing one couple half sashayed, the other not sashayed. He's dancing everybody half sashayed, and yet he's finding us everywhere. You're not. We all know right at the basic, the standard ideal for normalizing a set is a star through. All we've done is add that concept of get your primary couple opposite each other and call square star through. Your square is now normalized. You're on the grid for any resolution that's going to present itself on that grid. Okay, the resolution is the standard resolution from a box or a center box or whatever method you use that pairs up the key couple, gets them to the outside somehow, and from there, you know what to do. Be very, very cautious. Again, we've said this a number of times. If you're in this kind of a setup, there's a tendency star through and zoom. Don't call it. Zoom from a double pass through formation is tight. It's uncomfortable, especially following a star through, more so. So just be aware of that. Use your techniques and your choreographic flow modules to get them where you want. Make sure your call analysis is up. All those foundation skills are going to be important. The big thing is you've got to practice this. Don't rush it. With experience, you're going to see these resolutions popping out of nowhere, and sometimes faster than you can grab them. If I'm here, where are we here? Let's get a standard couple. Do I even have a standard couple? Sure, I do, somewhere up here. Okay, let's use this one. If I got them to this position and I call star through, or I call slide through, my God, is that square resolved? Yes, it's resolved, but I didn't take a moment to pause and say it. I called slide through, pass through, trade by. It doesn't matter, you're on the grid because you can easily move on that grid. And when you've got a couple paired on the grid, you're only a couple movements away from a resolution, no matter where you are. Practice it, don't rush it. It will come to you faster. Okay? There's an old adage, the fastest way to slow things down or to break things from being fluid is to rush. If you want to slow down and make it awkward, rush. I'm telling you, don't rush it, because if you take your time and learn this, it's going to gain its own momentum and make it much, much easier for you to call. Partner pairing is one more tool in the toolbox. Now, how to maximize the use of confident control with positive partner pairing? Simple. Practice. That's the key to success with any of the tools in your caller toolbox. You have to take the time to read, you have to take the time to understand, then you have to take the time to begin to build one step at a time with any tool that is in your toolbox. This one is no different. You have tools such as definitions, movement mechanics, formation management, call analysis, modules, isolated site, resolution techniques, all of those things. You need to take your time to work with them. This is no different. Practice your formation management with single pairing control in a foursome. Change your perspective of pairing to include that the dancers that you're keeping as a pair are not always side by side, but they're somewhere together in a foursome, regardless of the formation. We don't care about arrangement. We don't care about sequence. We don't care about relationship. We're only concentrating on the formation, and formation management is a very basic foundation skill, moving in and out of formations. Understanding this means letting go and being confident with your choreographic control, because it's now easy. We're not thinking about resolution, only good, flowing, smooth, fun, and enjoyable dancing. Remember to start small. With any tool that you learn, start small, practice with it one bit at a time. You know, if you're going to start using this in your own clubs or your own thing, even if you're an experienced caller and you want to start playing with this and you haven't, pick a tip and play with it for one tip. Get more comfortable with it as you go. Whatever you do, don't just jump in and start doing it, because you will frustrate yourself. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes a change of mindset, and it takes more than anything, practice. This technique works best when you combine it with things that you already know, as we showed with the resolution technique. Okay, when you combine it with things such as isolated site, rubber banding techniques, the use of modules, resolution techniques that you may already know, you're going to find that this is going to complement those things if you let it. If you try and force it into those things, it's going to conflict with each other. Any questions? Have we got questions? Head ladies chain side square through. Okay, let's have a quick look at that on contaminations. Where are we here? Share screen. Reset. So what was it? Head ladies chain? Pull up the chat to see if I've got that right. Head ladies chain side square through 4. Okay. So here's the setup. How do we get out of this? Well, we look at, there's a partner pairing.
Yeah.
They're in the same general pairing. They're in that same group of 4. It'd be fairly easy to keep them together, wouldn't it? If I do a star through, they're still in the same group of 4. Pass through, they're still in a group of 4. Get to facing lines, they're still in the same group of 4, only on the side, and my key couples are opposite each other. Slide through, who can resolve from there? They're on the grid.
Right and left through. Swing through, turn through, Alaman left.
That is a very simple and easy resolution from what looked like a complex setup. They look so far apart, but they're in that group of 4. Keeping that positive partner pairing is easy. Who was that?
Ed was the one who gave you the resolution.
Okay, Ed, there
Not
is
the
one
question.
thing there. Yeah, there is one thing about that resolution that I want to comment on. Right and left through followed by a swing through. Remember our last session, we talked about that wayward hand. If the hand is behind the back on a courtesy turn, a swing through becomes a bit awkward. Okay, so just be aware of that. Daryl, I saw your hand up. Did you have a question, a comment?
Yes, I've got lots of questions and probably lots of comments too, for that matter.
Always welcome.
I posed that head ladies chain side square through 4, intentionally putting them into a corner or opposite lady boxes to where nobody had their partner within the same group of 4. You
Yep.
said something about one movement getting them to where they need to be. That's
No,
you know, the
Yeah.
possibilities. What you're talking about is 2 couple dancing. Am I right?
not exactly.
Okay.
Where I was, like, when you look at the grid, this is why I'm saying it needs, when you're talking about one couple pairing, you need to change that mindset, because if I look at this, nobody is in a group of 4 this way, but you need to
Right.
change your mindset in that they are in a group of 4, because that group can be this way, it can be this way, it can be this way. It doesn't matter what the formation, the arrangement, the relationship are. So as long as there's an identifiable group of 4 that they're in there, it will work.
Mel,
they're always within a group of 4.
Not always, not always. There are times where they won't be, but it's easy to use a movement or 2 to get them back to that group of 4.
Well, okay, I'm not going to argue with you over that. One question I'll have, all of this is directed at getting to the corner. How many different Alaman lefts are there really, formations?
Yep, there are the 4, but that's not what that is not sorry, not where we're taking them to. That's something that is another technique, and once you're familiar with that technique of the 4 Alaman positions, All we're doing is starting small by saying, pair up the key couple, get them on the outside, bring the corner to them. Now, as you gain experience as a new caller, you can start moving them through the grid to any one of those 4 element left positions. And doing this kind of an action is going to really expand your capability of using those exponentially, because they're going to start jumping out at you left, right, and center. Yeah, and you're absolutely correct. I'm not looking for a resolution. I'm not focused on the resolution other than the very, very simple start. And that is getting into the facing line or facing lines where your partner is there, calling star through, and then getting that key couple on the outside, bringing the corner to them. After that, you expand to the 4 different Alaman left positions and the various techniques to establish those positions.
Okay, Mel,
Who's this? Bob?
it used to
Bob,
be called Bob.
hang on 1 second, Bob, because there's something I did want to clarify. It is possible to have your key couples nowhere in your group of 4.
That's your corner boxes, or excuse me, opposite lady.
Yeah,
box.
and I'm not worried about that, because again, we're not worried about arrangement, we're not worried about sequence, we're not worried about relationship. We're only worried about a formation of making sure that these key dancers are somewhere in that group of 4. So in this one, if I'm in an ocean wave or a column, a circulate will bring the dancers so that I have a paired couple in a group of 4. If
Yeah.
I'm in
You
boxes,
can always do something to bring them there, but
absolutely.
they're not always there.
That's what I said. They're not. That's why it's called lost to pairing. Circulate action. If you're in lines facing out, wheel and deal. If you're in facing lines, a ladies chain. That will always bring that 1 couple pairing back. Those 3 movements, one of them.
Now, you mentioned this, this is Ed, you mentioned in the, that having them in the center as a possibility. Can you show something with that? I don't know exactly what you were talking about.
Sure.
Okay,
But, Ed, I'm going to hold that question,
Okay,
and we're going to go with Bob because he had his hand up, and then I'm going to come to your question.
thank you.
Okay, Bob.
okay. Yeah, back to your setup right there. To me, the simplest thing was touch a quarter girls trade. And then you're in partner lines.
Yep, absolutely.
Which was this?
What you got to remember, I'm not looking at ways of resolving. I'm not looking at ways of
I'm pairing
establishing
them up.
I understand, but what I need you to do is just grasp the concept that we're getting rid of the thinking on arrangement. We're getting rid of the think on sequence. We're getting rid of the thinking on relationship while we're moving the dancers. The only relationship that we are caring about is that 1 couple positive pairing. And you are absolutely correct, Bob. There's probably about 60 or 70 different ways of getting there. Touch a quarter, centers trade. Absolutely.
No,
That's going to,
girls.
that's going.
Can you show where
sorry,
we're starting?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so. Okay. So what? Touch 1 quarter.
And you're not sharing yet.
You're not sharing the screen.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
It did say it was sharing on mine. Okay, so we're in this position. Okay, now what I'm saying is you have a positive partner pairing. I'm just going to turn these guys black for a second to make it easier. So we have a positive partner pairing. They're in a group of 4. I'm not worried about getting to partner lines. I'm not worried about getting to corner boxes. All I'm worried about is getting my partners in a line facing each other. Okay. Now, what Bob is saying is touch 1 quarter. Sorry. I should play that. Touch a
Mel.
quarter.
Mel,
What-
you've made the statement that you're not worried about relationship, but in fact you are dealing with relationship.
I am, but I'm not worried about focusing on whose relationship is what. The relationship itself is, I really don't care if I'm half sashayed. I really don't care if I'm boys together, girls together. All I'm worried about is two dancers in the square. Okay. The relationship is important for the choreographic flow. Those are basic foundation techniques. I'm not worried about identifying partner relationships at this point. And then you had the ladies' trade, I believe, Bob.
Yeah. My thing was to put the head couple number one together.
Yep.
Now you can do a flutter wheel and get them to be facing.
Absolutely.
But you know, instead of a long lengthy thing, it's just bingo right there.
Yep, absolutely. Or from there you could circle up. Remember what I said when earlier on. Once you start using this, things are going to start jumping out at you. Resolutions are going to start jumping out at you. You're going to try and get that set up. And what I would have done at this point, instead of the ladies' chain or whatnot to get them opposite, I would have just skipped that last step because it's already resolved. Recognizing that comes with experience and practice. What I'm looking at right now is if you are a brand new caller and you don't recognize a partner line, you don't recognize I can do a touch a quarter ladies trade to establish that partner line. As a new caller, what you can do, you do recognize I know what a facing line is, and I know what my positive pair is. I know how to get the dancers to that point. From that point, I know how to resolve off the grid. All the rest of this, if you have experience, if you're a journeyman caller or an experienced caller, you do this all the time automatically. And you're going to see things automatically that make it easier. I'm asking you to let go of what you know for a second, take a step back, and look at just the basic foundation of this. Okay. And yes, there are hundreds of ways to resolve a square from a partner line. You're absolutely correct. There's a number of ways to get to a partner line. Ed, you talk about ends and centers, if they're in the end or the center, correct?
Well, you were saying something about with the primary couple in the center, I think,
Like that.
or in a double pass through, starting double pass through. I'm not exactly sure. I was just trying to figure out.
Yeah.
You were just trying to give an example, so I was trying to visualize.
Something like that.
That sounds good.
Okay. So what would I do? Do I have a positive pairing in a group of four?
Center.
Yes, I do. I can do anything to move those dancers. Okay. So once I have that, you know, I'm in facing lines. I want to get them facing. I could call a face in, I could call a double pass through face in, all sorts of different things. Undo. Oops, sorry. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yes.
There's my circulate type action. I'm still opposite lines on the end. Anywhere you get to that line, now all I want to do is get them facing, and remember, ends or centers of the same line. Pass through, bend the line. They are now opposite. Slide through, and I'm on the grid pattern for a resolution. In this case, swing through, turn through. We as callers look at concepts and we focus on what we know. And I am the very, very strongest proponent of the best calling technique, the best resolution technique, the best choreographic control technique is the one that works for you. In Bob's case, Bob said touch a quarter, ladies trade. That takes us to partner lines. Absolutely. If that's what he's comfortable with, it may not be the method that John uses, or it may not be the method that Alan uses. But then what he did is he took what he knew and he applied the same concept. He just took it to where it was, the partner line, used the ladies chain, and he's back into this, this concept of where we are here. Alan will probably look at this differently and look at, there's a whole bunch of different ways of relationship calling to get to this setup that I want to have. Spin chain through will do it, and then, you know, because that's a ladies chain action. If you're comfortable with any kind of choreography that's, and you know that it does a chain type action, use it. Use what you know to your advantage. And what you're doing is you're applying this technique to what you already know. If your foundation skills are very, very basic, reset, but you know how to resolve from a grid, you know your basic flow and formation management, and you know to recognize formations. Those are 3 foundation skills. This is a skill that will enhance your calling.
Okay.
If you understand isolated sight, this is a skill that will enhance your calling. It gives you a lot more flexibility, and it gives you another tool for the toolbox. It's just one to look at. It's one to use. I was asked about this, so I wanted to explain what was meant by one couple pairing.
Mel?
I've got, sorry, I think I had Bob first, and then I've got Ed. Is that correct? Was that you, Bob?
Yes.
Yes. Bob?
Yeah,
go ahead.
the thing was that I do a lot of stuff with opposite lady boxes.
Yep.
And because I do, I know this thing. Okay, if everybody's in sequence, it's a pass-through trade by star through to a 1P to a partner line.
Yep.
Now, if everybody's out of sequence, then you do the same thing and you end up in partner lines out of sequence. If the boys are out of sequence, okay, then it's a touch a quarter girls trade and you're in lines out of sequence. If the girls are out of sequence, you touch a quarter girls trade and it's partner lines in sequence. Now, I know all these because I worked on them. So the minute that Daryl goes, oh, an opposite lady box, they're not hard things for me anymore.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to take exactly what you said, and I agree with you, and I agree with Daryl 100%. And I'm going to say, who's a newer caller? I almost fell for that, Brian Barry. Masako.
Shall I
No,
volunteer?
no, I've chosen Masako for this one. Masako.
Okay.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
sorry, I was not paying attention.
Perfect. That makes it even easier for the question I'm going to ask you. If I'm in an opposite lady line, who's in sequence and who is not?
Sorry.
No, don't. Please do not be sorry. I put you on the spot, and I did it intentionally because I was hoping that you would have to stop and think about this for a long time, because quite frankly, I have to think about this for a long time.
Oh.
No, and I'm being serious about this. When you have a concept, now, if I have a facing line and I call something to put a couple facing their partner, what can I call to make them a couple? If I have dancers facing their partner, what can I call to make them a standard couple?
Your favorite call, Mel.
I'm still supposed to answer the question, right?
Yes, please.
I'm not sure, but I would do slide through first?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I now have a paired couple and I now have standardized square. I don't care about in sequence. I don't care about who's where. I don't care about the arrangements. I don't even really care about the relationship other than I have a boy facing a girl, and I will already have a boy facing a girl if I put my partners facing each other. The relationship is already taken care of itself. Okay,
Okay, Mel.
There's no other options that are available to you. So it's important, but I don't have to think about it because it happens by itself. Okay, is this still related to the same question, Bob?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll carry on with it and then we'll get to Ed.
Asked a question and
Thank you,
then
Masako. Sorry, what was that?
What's an opposite lady line is a line where everybody has their opposite lady in sequence. That's the definition of an opposite lady line. And you know the quickest way to get them to a partner line? Go ahead, heads lead right circle to a line. Dance it.
That's not good choreography. I'm just setting up the formation.
I know. Okay, now the quickest resolution to get everybody to their partner is 4 ladies chain.
Yep. How many people are comfortable with a 4 ladies chain from lines?
I am. I grew up doing that.
You did. How many dancers today? Is that danced in Japan?
I have danced it, but I don't think it's very common or popular.
Okay.
In my
Yolanda?
area.
Yep. No. It works in your club. What I'm proposing, and you know, this is one of those situations where we do not have a positive partner pairing. However, if I call a ladies chain, I now have a positive, a positive partner pairing in a group of 4. Pass through, bend the line,
Mel?
and they're opposite. It will work all the time, but you have to change that perspective. I'm not looking for resolutions because there's thousands of them. Once you adopt the technique, all these resolutions of what you already know are going to jump out at you thousandfold. And you'll probably you probably do this already and you're not even aware of it. But for a caller that doesn't have that foundation of experience, this is a good way of building that experience. I've got Ed, and then I think that was Mickey that was next. Sorry,
Yeah.
Bob, did that answer your question?
Well, it was so, I mean, your things to resolve that are so long, or the 4 ladies chain effect. All you do is do a girl walk, boy dodge, girl trade.
Yep. Again, that's experience. What I'm looking at is pair up the key couple, put them on the outside, bring their corner to them. It is a sensation of control that you will feel as a caller before getting to that options that are available to shorten these sequences. You have to learn to walk before you can run. You have to learn to crawl before you can walk. Ed, I think you're
Okay,
next.
so going back to the different movements that you can get people into these in your groups. You mentioned the chain action. I've never heard that term before or don't remember hearing it.
Okay,
So
a chain action is where you have a partner change occurrence within a square. That can be like a flutter wheel. It's a chain action. That's not my terminology. I think a better terminology some people use is a partner change action, like a ladies chain, but they call it a ladies chain action, but it's really a partner change action. If you're a mental image caller, we're talking X's as opposed to O's, I believe. I could be wrong on that. Mental image is not my strong forte, but I've created a partner change action. The same ability applies to almost all of your other management techniques. If you don't have them together, you do a partner change action or a ladies chain action to put them into where you want it. All we've done is taken it a step back and saying, if you change your perspective, that action is going to put them in a group of 4, whether it's linear or in a box, they're still going to be in a group of 4. And from there, it's easy enough to get them to that line.
So you also mentioned spin chain. Spin chain.
Chain through. Yeah, okay. Okay, so here's a situation where my key couple is not paired. Correct? They're not in a group of 4. Spin chain through has the effect of a ladies chain. And notice I now have a positive partner pairing. They're in the same group of 4 that I can identify. And I take that technique to the next step. Okay. I'm just looking at stuff right now, sorry. And I'm in facing lines and my paired couple is opposite each other. And we can pretty much resolve from there. Did that answer your question, Ed?
So I was also trying to figure out what referral you have to find different ways to do that chain action. Is there a reference on that?
Anything that moves one dancer across that
Plane.
Center plane is called a change action. Whether or not your center plane is vertical or horizontal, if you move one dancer across that, generally that vertical plane, that's a change action. Head ladies chain is a change action. From a box, you know, those kinds of things.
And the A couple cross the plane, what is that reference?
When a couple crosses the plane, that's just a circulate type action. If they're both going across, if both couples are going across the plane, you're not really changing anything.
So a trade by or on an all 8 circulating a wave.
Yeah,
you've got a couple.
You've got a couple moving across the plane.
Okay.
But what you have to look at is we're looking at the dancer pairing, one dancer. If I move one couple across the plane, they're still going to either be on the top or the bottom or in a group of 4, whatever you're comfortable with. And that's what the beauty of this is whatever you're comfortable with, it will work. As long as you accept the fact that you may have a degree of separation between what is considered a paired couple, regardless of the formation, regardless of the arrangement, regardless of the sequence, regardless of whether or not it's boys together, girls together, as long as
quick comment, you're getting me to concentrate, so I'm losing that smile.
Okay, I've got Daryl and then I've got Alan. Yes, Daryl.
I guess I'm confused. What you call this a tool, Mel? What is a tool for? What are you using it for?
It's a choreographic management tool. I found when I was introduced to this, it made me more comfortable as a caller to not focus on resolution, to not focus on arrangement, to not focus on sequence.
What does this tool do that you can use it for? What's the purpose of it?
The tool allows me
get them together. Then what? Why?
Okay. Eventually, it leads to resolution because all tools will lead you to the resolution. And you're absolutely correct. And it's important that you understand, and this is to everybody, not to you, because you already know this, Daryl. Resolution techniques, there are lots of them. We've got the friends and enemies, we've got the grid, we've got the mental image technique, we've got the Alaman left position technique, we've got goal posting, we've got circle techniques. They all pretty much fall into the pattern of you're getting dancers on a grid and you're moving to one of 4 Alaman left positions. They will all come to exactly the same thing regardless of what technique you use. Sorry?
When I asked you how many Alaman lefts there actually are, There's one in a circle. Circle figures, that's one element. Circle to the left, Alaman left, man star right to the corner, Alaman left. Those are all circle type figures. A second would be in your partner boxes or your partner lines. That would be in the trade by formation. That's your second. The third is your corner box. That's all there is. Those three in symmetric, normal symmetric choreography. You're getting these together, and incidentally, other than the circle figures, the other two are in the grid. So if you can recognize what you have in either one of the boxes of the grid, and lines are nothing but boxes of the grid as well.
Absolutely.
The resolution, if that's your purpose, it becomes quite simple without having to get their partner alongside them. That's the point that I'm trying to make. But whatever. Yeah, I didn't mean to be argumentative, Mel.
No, you're not argumentative at all. And in fact, I appreciate this because if you remember back when we talked about the chicken plucker, Bob doesn't do a right and left through pass through trade by. He introduced just the pass through trade by to keep the dancers in sequence because that's the way his mind thinks. There are a lot of different ways of looking at the squares. There's a lot of different ways of managing the squares. There's a lot of different ways of moving them around. Once you're familiar with the 4 Alaman left states in the grid, or the 3 Alaman positions, line, circle, or box, then this is going to become child's play, and you're probably going to do it automatically without even thinking about it. For somebody that has never been experienced to that or has not developed those techniques, this is a way of getting to the point where you can confidently and comfortably move the dancers around, have a feeling of confidence as a caller moving the dancers around because you can see where your pairing is. You don't have to worry about boy, girl on the left, and get them to a place where your ultimate goal is, of course, resolving the square to that Alaman left position.
Let me say something really quickly because I do have to go get ready for a dance. This might be useful to the newer callers in your group. If you're teaching your classes, I highly recommend using the Sicilian Circle, which is a 2-coupled circle for teaching. And if you're going to practice your resolutions there, any place, that's the place to do it because you only have 2 couples, 4 dancers to deal with. And I don't care what you're doing within a square, you're doing it to 2 couples.
We had a long presentation on the Sicilian Circle.
2 couples, but hey, gang, thanks a lot for letting me jump in there, and you have a good week. We'll see you.
And keep thinking about coming to that presentation on goal posting. I'm gonna keep nagging you.
Okay, you keep after.
But you're absolutely correct about the Sicilian Circle and 2-couple calling. We've had that in a number of presentations and isolated site. This is just another step on that evolution. Mickey, you had a comment in here somewhere, and then I believe I had somebody else with their hand up. Alan, sorry. Mickey, I forgot about you. You had a comment a few back.
Just after the circle to a line, if you take a reverse to flutter, it's a much better flow than the ladies chain.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wasn't trying to deal with it, but I actually should. It's a very good concept, and it's a very good a good thing to remember. Sometimes in these sessions, what we do is we set up a formation, or we set up a position that we want the dancers in to show what we're thinking about. And we forget about the flow of getting to that position. And I probably shouldn't do that. You know, for instance, 4 ladies chain, heads lead to the right. Absolutely terrible, terrible, terrible body flow. You would never call that. And we should all recognize you would never call that. We're not looking at it for flow. We were just looking at setting up that facing line with the head ladies chain. Probably shouldn't do that because people think that way. And you're absolutely correct. A reverse flutter wheel or flutter wheels are, in a lot of cases, much, much better flow. Alan, I think you had your hand up, and then Bob.
This might sound critical, Mel, but you're using the term positive partner pairing. And with people with multiple languages, when you pair somebody, they're together. And really, you're not talking about that. You're talking about having them in a cohort of 4 people, somewhere in the cohort of 4. So then group may not be, you may not want to use that, but that's just a comment on the side to address Ed's question about change. If you change the relationship of 2 people in the group of 4, it doesn't matter how you do it. It could be, for instance, that you have the centers pass through and do a U-turn back. And in each group of 4, you've changed 2 people. And so that is a change relationship. So it could be a ladies change across, or it could be the boys change across, or it could be a boy and a girl change across. It doesn't really matter. You've changed the makeup of the foursome. Does that make sense, Ed?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. The techniques that we were talking about, notice this kind of a setup, it works exactly the same. I got boys together, girls together. All that pass through and turn back is done. It's put the pair that I'm managing, the managed pair, into the same cohort, the same group of 4. I use the term positive partner pairing just because it was a nice alliteration and rolled off the tongue. I didn't have a better name for it. Some people call it one couple management. That too is a bit of a misnomer, but you're absolutely correct. I chose the title because of alliteration. Yes, Bob.
Yes, I got a couple of statements. I love goal posting. It's a major part of what I do in classes. And I used to talk to Bob Osgood about it. Okay, but go on beyond that. So I've been calling 49 years. I never one single time in a class had to resolve to the corner. If I was teaching a class, I write out sequences that are based on effective teaching of the choreography. I do not vary from it, and I know exactly where everybody is all the time. You would not believe the advantage that gives me over anybody else, because after a while, my dancers know that I know where they are. They don't think I'm playing a game and searching for my corner. And you shouldn't be experimenting and getting into positions you're not familiar with when you're teaching a class. If you have a club and you're going along and workshop, that's fine. And I do that, but not in a class. If I do not have the complete sequence that I'm going to use, I shouldn't be calling that call. Now,
I'm not in disagreement with you at all. I'm in 100% agreement. I am, for the most part, a modular caller, and I prepare my modules so that I have control, and I use techniques so that I have control. Anybody that's ever heard me call understands that. And anybody that has ever danced with me, any caller that's ever danced with me will know that about partway through my patter call, they're going to know what the focus is for that tip. You do a lot of preparation, you do a lot of control, and you learn the techniques of awareness management in your sequencing of your squares and things. Unfortunately, since about 1985, or probably before that for some of the callers that are older, we as callers lost a primary focus, this is my opinion here, lost a primary focus on how to teach callers how to call, with an emphasis on teaching callers how to resolve a square from anywhere first, and then it doesn't matter what you call because you can always resolve a square. And that became a focus for technical choreography. Callers that are successful today, callers that have had success for many years and that are still successful, are those callers such as yourself, such as Betsy, such as Alan, such as Barry, and a few others that have been calling and use a basic technique which gives them the comfort of management, the comfort of knowledge that they know what they're doing when they're doing it, and their focus is on the dancer and the dancer's having fun because you have control of what it is you're going to call. Unfortunately, today, and many of these forums will bear this out. There's a lot of callers today that are starting to call. Their first group is an A1 or challenge group because that's what they danced at, and the caller's gone. There's callers learning to call, and it's a plus club, and they're given a tip every now and then, and they're told to just call the singing call as your patter. Great. And then it's mix up, resolve the square. Here, I'll teach you how to resolve. And that's how they're taught to call. And I'm sure there's a few callers in the room today that that's how it was thrust upon them. What I'm trying to look at is there are a lot of very good foundation techniques, mental image, choreographic sequencing, sequence calling, goal posting, those types of relationship calling, which are basic fundamental systems to success in calling and dancer comfort. That's what will give you longevity. This is just one more tool in the toolbox, developing isolated step to the next phase. The next phase after that continues. The next phase after that continues. This is just a simple choreographic management tool that will allow you to move the dancers around. And if you find yourself in a bit of trouble, pair up that key, get in there. It is, you could call it a resolution technique, but it's a choreographic management technique that is very, very simplistic. It's not one that you would want to use all the time because once you gain experience, you're going to build your techniques, your resolutions, your get outs, and you're going to get to where you set us up to that partner line, and you'll recognize that partner line like that. You can forget the rest of it because you've already got a get out from a partner line. That's the same with every single resolution technique that we have learned. The friends and enemies, the box, the center box technique, all of those are exactly the same. With experience, you get to a point and say, I know where I am, I'm out. Not everybody has that experience, and not everybody's been taught that experience. What I'm looking at is tools to help you get that experience so that when you do have it, you don't need this stuff because you are in control all the time. I think, Gene, you had your hand up, and then we'll come back to you, Bob. Gene, did you have your hand up? Gene Turner? No? Okay, Bob, go ahead.
Okay. What happened to me is in the 90s, I was doing caller coaching and helping new callers. But then in the early 90s, there was an overwhelming change. And the only thing, or the primary thing, that newer callers wanted to do was learn how to resolve a square. They didn't give a rat's blankety blank about body flow, and sequencing or anything else. All they wanted to do was learn how to resolve a square. As a result, since then, I get out on the floor, not only me, but the floor knows the caller's going through his resolve thing to get everybody back to the corner and everything else. They recognize it. But because they recognize that, they also have an overwhelming feeling that that idiot on the stage is lost. And he's looking for a solution. He's not trying to entertain them one iota. He's trying to work his way out of a mess.
Yep.
And that doesn't make for the good, fun experience of square dancing.
You are absolutely correct, Bob.
Thing.
If you remember when we talked about isolated sight, when we start introducing it, it's two couple dancing, head square through, take a snapshot. As soon as that side couple is on the outside, no matter whether I move them around or rubber band them, if I keep those four dancers together, I'm dancing to get them on the outside, and then I know that that square is resolved. That's a technique of isolated sight. That's also a technique that if that is all you ever use, the dancers will pick up on it very, very quickly. Once you start rubber banding and moving them around, it feels different, but the dancers will pick up on it very quickly, and they realize that they're dancing with the same people all the time. This is the next step in that type of a technique of sight calling, where you're looking at one. After a while, the dancers will figure out that, Whenever I'm facing my partner and he calls a star through or calls a slide through, I know that that person's getting to resolve. It's a stepping stone technique to lead you to more practical applications, more applications of choreographic management. The beauty of dealing with one couple is you can have boys together, girls together, boy, girl, boy, boy, girl, standard couples or half sashayed couples. Each one will end you after that star through into a slightly different arrangement that gives you 16 options. The outcome is still going to be the same. You've got the paired, you bring the corner to the paired partner once you put them on the outside. With experience, your resolutions on the grid are going to pop out at you. So you don't have to do the same one each time. And now it's going to happen very, very quickly. All of these are techniques of sight calling and choreographic management. Bob, you hit the nail on the head. You said something that many callers today are very uncomfortable with, because many callers today are the ones that created this issue. And you are absolutely correct. I 100% agree with you. We as callers and caller trainers and callers mentors lost sight, no pun intended, of why we are calling for the sake of resolution and technical choreography. When a brand new caller sits down at their very first caller school, usually the first or second question or question that's asked is, what's your hardest thing? And it always comes out, resolving the square. Always comes out. And the focus becomes on sight resolution, not on all the hundreds of other things that are more important than doing that. All the foundation skills of managing dancers and giving them a comfortable dance. The best comment I ever heard was from a dancer. I was dancing, actually was down in Wollongong at one of Barry's dancers. And one of the dancers, we were talking this at a college clinic, and one of the dancers that was there said, I would rather dance a dance comfortably and have fun all night long and never find my corner than dance a dance where I'm always looking for my corner and the caller is forcing us to find the corner.
Yeah.
That dancer didn't care if the square was resolved. That dancer cared that they had a good time at the dance, socializing and dancing comfortably.
Quick question.
If you ever get a chance to dance with Barry or with Bob, their emphasis is on good body flow. The same with Betsy. That's what makes it comfortable. They've got those techniques to resolve the square and control the square to take them to the techniques. This is just one step of getting to that point. We're going to go to Ed first, and then we're going to come back to you, Bob.
Thank you. Just, you mentioned the 16 formations. Are those the ones you had earlier in the presentation?
No, I said that was 16 formations. There may be others. I didn't take a lot of the time. What I put down was a whole bunch of variety there. I think that's all of them. But from standard couples, facing couples, because it's standardized, the star through will normalize the square. There's 16 possibilities of boy, girl, girl, boy, 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 girl, girl, boy, girl, girl, boy, standard couples, half sashayed couples, and where they are. That a star through is going to get you either into a trade by, a double pass through, a box, a completed double pass through, one of those formations. Okay. And in the notes, there's a little exercise with that, just to look at those formations and then see what you can do with them. They're all printed out there as well. Yes, Bob.
Okay, back to your thing about dancers wanting to dance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not worried about being resolved. That was the whole issue, which became why I became a semi-quote expert on six-couple rectangular dancing. Because you think about resolving, try doing it with six couples in a six couple, not hexagon, rectangles, and you can get really messed up. And what I did to my dancers, I made a proposition. I said I could be inventive, I could be creative, but for me to resolve it back to your original partner, which I can do, but it might take me half an hour just on one sequence. And I just didn't have the confidence of being able to do it, nor did I want to spend the time on it. And my dancer said, we don't care if we get the partner back. We love the creative things that you start to do from those. and the way you make it feel different than a normal square. So don't worry about getting your partner. Now, I did this with a total of 5 different groups, and all of them overwhelmingly said, we don't care about resolution. So we had a lot of fun, and I did it for a while, and because I did it, I started to learn things. And then I put together certain things that made it so successful that they always look for a chance to get a 6-couple square. And
that's a good thing.
And when I go to Caller Lab and I tried to tell the other callers, that's how I started. Some of the elites got very angry that I wasn't teaching people to resolve. And
Yep.
I felt like I was semi-banned from doing anything else in the future.
I'm going to add this on, Bob. I'm gonna shorten what you're saying there for a second, but I want to add this, and we'll come back to it because what you're saying is important. Putting the focus on site resolution was one of the biggest downfalls of calling. A resolution is important to dancers, right and left, Grant. It's a reward, but dancers like to dance and have fun, and that reward is part of that having fun. That's something Betsy got. Are you still with us, Betsy?
She is.
Yeah, good. It's one of the things that she stressed at the caller school in Wollongong as well, is the resolution is important. It's the reward for the dancers, but they'll be happier even if you don't resolve. If you're giving them a good dance and you make a mistake, they're going to be more forgiving than if all you're doing is trying to resolve a square all night because you're focused on resolution rather than on the dancers. And I think that is pretty much what was going on. I wanted to interject that because it's a thought that you have expressed that really and truly pisses off a lot of callers today because they were the ones that were forcing site resolution as the be all end all down our throats. I'll give you the last word here, and then Betsy, I do apologize. I just saw your hand raised, so we'll come to you next. So Bob, I just wanted to interject that on yours, but please go ahead, finish what you're saying.
No, I want to hear what Betsy wants to say.
Okay.
Okay, I've always had I've had a theory for a while. Let me lower my hand. That part of the reason that people want to focus on quote site resolution or whatever is because they think it's the easy way to be able to call. And I think that all of the drills, all of the memorization of modules, all of the formation management techniques that we really want the callers to be focusing on, they don't want to do that work. They just want the easy way out. And therefore, they kept demanding, show us how to resolve, show us how to resolve. But if you can't create, say, a two-faced line, then how can you do a certain resolution technique? If you can't create a facing line with standard couples, how can you do a resolution technique? So it was a lot of times people were demanding things, and they went in a caller school, and they went to the caller school that would give them what they demanded rather than the caller school that was doing what was possibly better for their careers.
I agree with you on it. They need to get what they need, not what they want.
True.
One of the greatest experiences I ever had that really proved what you're saying to the point. I went down again to Wollongong. Barry, are you still with us, Barry? Oh, there you are. Barry.
I think he's gone to sleep, actually.
You can't tell. Barry Watson ran a caller school down there, and I did this same question at the caller school with all of the callers in the room, and I said, what is the one thing that gives new callers the most stress? Every single one of them put their hand up and said, resolving the square. I asked that question 4 times during this school. I talked about it, and then we did the morning session. The first thing in the afternoon session was a site resolution technique. I put a site resolution technique early in my caller schools, and I put it for one reason. Show a technique, give them a piece of paper and say, here is a technique that works 100% of the time. prove it to them. Now you're confident, and I take it off the table. I made every single one of them use that technique. Nothing else. Hundreds of resolutions out there use that technique. Now they're confident works. I took it off the table, and then we started focusing on formation management, moving the dancers through flow. By the end of the second day, not one single caller put their hand up and said, what causes the callers more stress? Not one single caller said resolving the square, because there's so much more. Resolution is important, but there's things that are more importanter. So many things. And I teach resolution early for one reason, and that's to take it off the table, because there's so much more things that are important to learn before you learn how to do site resolution. What Bob Elling was saying earlier about understanding how to manage a square and knowing where everybody is, or writing your modules or learning your techniques so that you know how to manipulate a square so you don't lose your corner and your focus is on the dancer, is much, much more important than being able to get up, not have a plan of calling, just call whatever you want, and then being able to resolve a square in 5 minutes. That's not important. That's not important to the dancers. And if you're sitting there and your focus is on the resolve, the dancers will feel that and they will understand that, and you're going to go, and they're not going to come back to you because it's not an enjoyable experience. Did you have anything else to add to that, Betsy?
Just one other thing, when I was working on teaching people to recognize possible pairings, the term I used was potential pairing. You know, is there a pairing? No. Is there a potential pairing? And when the dancers are in a line and the key couple is facing, it's a potential pairing to me. But a lot of times newer callers don't see it. They have to be taught to look at the entire setup, which is what you were talking about in this presentation.
Yes and no. I like that term, potential pairings, much better. Like I said, I'm not lying. I use positive partner pairing just because it rolls off the tongue. It probably doesn't translate well, but it is a potential pairing anywhere in a foursome. Anywhere you can identify a joined foursome of dancers without a break. If there's one couple paired in that, you have a potential pairing. It's a much better term. Brian, you had your hand up, and then Bob, and then Mickey. Or I don't know if you had your hand up or you were just waving to somebody, but I saw hands flicker. So we'll go Brian, Bob, and then Mickey.
Mickey first before me.
Okay, Brian, Mickey, and then Bob.
Thanks, Mel. No, I didn't actually have my hand on, but while Betsy was talking and some of the others, when I've been doing caller schools, I deal with modules for the first few days, because I think that modules and understanding mental image and using some of those old techniques are so important to the callers in understanding what the choreography does. We don't get involved with site resolution until halfway through the school, through a 5-day school. I don't introduce site resolution until about halfway through the school, because I think the other techniques are so important and we need to concentrate on those.
I want to throw this on the table before we get to you, Mickey. Betsy, Brian, I'm still waiting for your email saying what presentations you're going to give in 2022.
Thank you very much.
No pressure.
I was going to say no pressure. Yes.
Mickey, you're up.
Yeah, I pretty much go along with what Brian just said. But on the other hand, what I wanted to say is that I think resolution is important. It's a part of the game. And even if it's the final part, and sometimes it's like undankbar. It's, you know, you call a real nice choreo for a long time, and then you cannot get the resolution. That's what they're gonna remember. And so it may be unfair, but that's what it is. And if you don't want to worry so much about a resolution and with the pressure on you, there are modules you can use for resolving and whatever, or using for your technique when calling. You don't have to go for sight calling. or have a mixture of something, or be prepared, just like Bob said, especially with the class. But I think resolving is one essential thing which needs to be there, because that's where our heritage comes from, when we had the routines written from 0 to end, and they did not change. And if we do not care about the resolving, and it needs to be in a nice flowing manner, of course, then I think we're just going up to the puzzle game. Maybe it's on my side, because sometimes if the dancers switch too much, and I don't write down, I always keep it in my mind. But if I do not get the right pairings, dancers look, because they're expected to happen. Okay, and I think this is an essential thing. It's the cream on top, and even if it's just a very short phase in your compared with the choreo, then it's an essential part. Yeah, even though it's a very short part in there.
I agree with you, Mickey, but I want to clarify. Resolution is important. Getting that corner for the Alaman left, or the right and left grand, or the promenade, that is important to the dancers. What is not so important, and having a technique, having prepared sequences, having modules, having isolated site snapshots or techniques to get to that quickly is also important. What is not as important as choreographic management, modules, controlling the dancers, being able to be in control of the square, is making site resolution from everywhere your focus on being a caller, without having the foundations of being able to do that. It is important to resolve the square, and you're absolutely correct. It is part of our heritage. I personally hate a tip that does not have an Alaman left or right and left grand in the pattern. I hate it. If everything is resolved to home, it's fun every now and then, but I hate, if that's the entire tip, I hate it, because it's not fun to dance. It's tiring, and it's quite frankly boring. That's a caller saying, look at me, I can resolve to home 100% of the time. I'm not saying thank you to all the dancers and congratulations with the right and left grand going around. Resolution is very important to call an Alaman left and a right and left grand or a promenade. That is important. Site resolution should not be your prime focus of learning to call, however.
Oh yeah.
And I will say, and that I think is probably a better way of expressing what we're saying. Site resolution, or a site resolution technique that works 100% of the time, is important, but there's a lot of things that are more important to learn first, and that's control.
It's one part of being full-fledged, right?
Part of a whole, yes. We have Bob next, and then I thought, Ed, you had your hand up. Bob?
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to go back and share with you something that wasn't exactly smooth, but the entertainment value has been unmatched in all the years to see the dancer reaction on the floor. And I was dancing in 1979 in San Jose to Dick Jones, who would come out here to do a festival. And in the note services, there was a 000 that was in there, and everybody tried to do the end result, which almost always broke down the dancers. And while dancing on the floor at the beginning of the tip, about the third sequence, I knew what he was going to do for the rest of them, and I knew he was going to be successful where everybody else failed. Is everybody familiar with what a 000 is? It's a sequence that has to be called 3 times in a row to zero out. A common one would be pass through, wheel and deal, double pass through, centers in, cast off, 3/4. You repeat that sequence 3 times and you're back into your regular line. And the thing that he did, and like I said, you could argue that the body flow wasn't that great, but I can tell you that the dancer reaction, you'll hardly ever see anything that equals it. He did lines up to the middle and back, do a U-turn back, then wheel and deal. And he called that. And the minute he called that, I knew what his whole sequence was. Because then he got lines and he did centers end cast off 3/4, 000. And then he put them together and he got the lines and he said, lines, do a U-turn back, do a wheel and deal. Do a U-turn back, put the centers in and cast off 3/4. Do a U-turn back, do a wheel and deal. Do a U-turn back, centers in, cast off 3. And he did it 3 times to the corner Alaman left. And when he called that Alaman left, there was like a religious revival on the floor. People were so excited to get through that sequence. And I have been using that sequence for nigh on 40 years now, and I get the same reaction from the floor every time I use it. And it's building to it. And it's a shame because a newer caller would take that sequence and just call it cold and watch the floor get clobbered and break down. But Dick constructed the whole tip in such a way as that they would not fail. And
I want to add to that, Bob. As you said, that is probably not the smoothest flowing choreography because there is an awkward turn in there.
Yes.
But if you remember from the session, and I just want to say thank you for proving that. Sometimes you will use a piece of choreography that doesn't flow for an effect. Forward and back is one of them. Balance in a wave is another one. Or deliberately using a piece of choreography that has that alternate flow, and I'm going to call it alternate flow, but it's a deliberate build up to something special. It's because it's done with a purpose. And if ever there is something in your choreography that is done that has that kind of a flow, you better be doing it for a purpose. In this case, Dick Jones and yourself, that's a purpose, and it has that effect that pleases the dancer, even though everybody will recognize that's not really great, smooth choreography. It's not something that you would call all night, but it's something that the dancers look forward to when you do use it.
They're lucky that they hear me call it every once a year or something like that. It would be the bigger the floor, the better the result on that particular one. But
Absolutely.
It's a thing of constructively building to an end. Not just going there. I used to write stuff, and I remember I wrote this call called Turn the Boat back in, I can't remember when, but it was weird because I was doing a dance down in Fresno, and there was another school right across the street, and a caller who recorded for me, Ron Welsh, amazing caller, and we were both teaching the same workshop. Well, what happened is it turned out to be a bonus. Instead of the two dancers competing, a couple dancers wandered over to see what they were doing. And when they found out we were doing the same call, they told everybody else who came over, paid to get into our dance and dance the same call with me. And they went, and some of our dancers went back to their dance, and both dances came out way ahead on it. But a caller had noted a sequence that I used, and then there was an after party, and he called it, and everybody broke down, and he said, how come you called it and everybody could do it, and I called it and nobody could do it? And I said, do you understand what the call does? What, formations are created and everything? And he said, no. And I said, that's why. You didn't really understand the call, and you were just saying the words, but you didn't know what it did. And
that's an absolute truth. And you'll find that a lot of times. You go to a dance and a caller will call something and use these words, and dancers get through it and they go, wow. And you try and parrot it, I should say, or use that material, and it breaks down. because that caller has the confidence, but also the delivery and the timing of preparation, practice, and experience to deliver what that caller wants to deliver. And unless
And a
you
lot
have
of it
that,
is
it's not
just
going to
the
work.
confidence is the big word.
Right.
You know, I'm
It's one of-
confident that this works.
Yeah, it's
And
one of the
dance-
reasons why I said with this technique that we were talking about of pairing, it gives you confidence to move the dancers comfortably because you know where they are. Like all other foundation techniques, you know where they are because you put them there. You know how to resolve because you put them there and you're building on what you know. If you have confidence in your delivery and your practice and your timing and everything else is going good and you're focused on good body flow and dancers rather than formation, arrangement, sequence, resolution, and I know resolution is not the R, but that's where it seems to change to, then you're not focused on the dancers. When you're confident, your dancers are going to be confident with you. And when you pull off something like that, Bob, I'm pretty sure you're confident because I know you're confident in your calling. Your dancers feel your confidence.
Yes.
When you're using a microphone, confidence is enhanced twofold. But when you're using a microphone, fear and anxiety is enhanced tenfold.
Yes.
And if you don't believe me, remember that adage, you can hear a smile on a microphone. If you're enjoying yourself, the dancers are going to understand it as well.
Yeah, it's kind of, you mentioned that, hear the smile. I had recorded the song
Hang on, John, Bob, I got John's hand up here.
Sure.
Can we see that examination? Is that equality sign? I'd like to see the reaction on it. That's 000.
I don't know if it'll work, but I will put it
Sure
up
it
there and
will.
we'll see what happens. Go ahead, Bob. What do you want? What's your setup?
As lead right circle to align. Okay, the actual 000, which comes at the end of building up to it, is everybody do a U-turn back. Do a wheel and deal. Do a U-turn back. Centers in. Cast off 3/4. Do a U-turn back. Do a wheel and deal. Do a U-turn back. Do a centers in, cast off 3/4. Do a U-turn back. Do a wheel and deal. Do a U-turn back. Centers in. Cast off 3/4. Alaman left. And the Alaman left, you don't wait till they finish the cast off 3/4. You cast off 3/4 to the Alaman left and they're looking, and that enhances the body flow at that point.
Very interesting. I like that.
May I add something?
Sure.
If the first turn back, if they get the hint to turn away from the center of the line, then everything works with the body flow.
Well, that's changing the rules.
Well, the first rule, well, since they're doing it the other times, they will have to do it because the body flow is the first impact you got to go for, and turning towards the partner is only if there is no body flow. But after you've started, there is body flow and it works pretty good. So if the first time where they don't have the body flow, you call them to turn away from the center of the set, then it would work really nice with the flow.
Yeah. Which
And
you
then you
could,
don't have to worry, just like you
For
said.
the new
You gotta-
callers, did you understand what he meant about you turn back is not always turning towards your partner? Yes, Yolanda, you're good with that?
I noticed on the first one where terminations had them turning without the flow.
I was concentrating on writing down the
I
sequence.
pasted it in the chat.
Yeah.
Actually, let's put this here. Okay, so here's the setup. Mickey's saying if everybody turned in the proper direction for body flow for the wheel and deal, that would be more comfortable. The U-turn back is towards your partner there because that's the way it is set. The U-turn back, the men should be turning left, but they're not, and the women
Yeah,
should be
but
turning right on the
the
U-turn
body
back,
flow
but they're not.
indicates it.
Yeah, and that's by definition, that's the way you're supposed to be turned. In this case, after the wheel and deal, or sorry, the cast off 3/4, to do a U-turn back, all the girls should be turning right, all the boys should be turning left. But the computer animation has them turning towards each other.
or you could do, instead of you turn back wheel and deal, it would turn through wheel and deal 3 times.
Yeah.
If body flows with it. But I think the bad body flow in this particular sense is like a little seasoning on a steak, you know, it just adds a little bit to it because they know the body flow isn't the best, but they know they can overcome it.
On the other hand, if they don't have the perfect body flow, then they go away from the absolute sequential overflow. So.
Yeah.
But
Like
I would tend to agree with you, Bob, because even if I change that to a turn through, which I've done here, turn through with the wheel and deal, right there, every one of those U-turn backs, I should have the centers turning left and I should have the outsides turning right for doing that U-turn back. Unfortunately, on this side anyway.
Yeah.
The computer animation is not going to do it. And I'll tell you right now, probably 9 times out of 10, most dancers are going to turn towards their partner anyway, because that's what they've been taught to do. And they've got their hands joined. They're automatically going to do that unless you have very, very good dancers and you've stressed that to them. It's not something that I would argue or force a point about. And I would tend to agree. Dancers that are familiar with this, once they've seen it a couple of times, are going to see it for the little bit of a gimmick that it is. It's a fun little gimmick. And in this case, bad body flow is there, but it actually enhances the purpose. It gives you that sense of accomplishment of doing something that's weird and wonderful that, oh, wow, that's tricky. Oh, look what he did that 3 times in a row. Look what happened. And for Bob, he could probably call turn through. Listen to this sequence. Everybody repeat it. Turn through, wheel and deal, U-turn back, centers in, cast off 3/4. Everybody repeat it. Great. Now, I'll get to that point now. Remember that sequence? Do it 3 times. What? Oh, okay. And little prompts. You can make a game of it. You can do all sorts of things. It is a gimmick. It is a 3/4 0. Or sorry, yeah, it's a 000, I should say.
0.
And I think you're right. Dancers would have fun with it. It's not something you would use over and over, but they would definitely have fun with it in a tip.
And they know they've done something different.
Yep.
What happens if you pass through and you do something that will half sachet instead of a U-turn back and pass through?
But then for the gimmick, I would not use the turn through, because then the U-turn back makes absolutely sense.
Absolutely.
That combination.
Turn through works choreographically, but I think it takes away from the sequence because the awkwardness of that turn back is actually
From
what
the
you're
gimmick.
driving at. it's pretty sad when we're all agreeing that, or most of us anyway, I don't know if we're all agreeing, but in some cases, bad body flow done deliberately with a purpose to enhance the experience is not necessarily a bad thing. Bad body flow, however, is generally a bad thing.
It's one thing about colors, we have to make decisions, and sometimes you got to sacrifice something if it's worth it. Yeah. I'm gonna try this.
Are you saying life isn't perfect, Nick?
Thank you, Michael.
I'm gonna try this.
So, anyone have anything else to add? Yes, John.
Yeah, I just want to make the comment that in my first 5 years of calling in the late 70s, early 80s, I went to 3 of Brian's caller schools where he was teaching the modules before site resolution. And in the modules that he got us to create, we actually had get in modules, then the figure modules, and then get out modules. So the actual, you didn't need to site resolute because the modules that we were told to create actually covered that.
Yes.
I do exactly the same thing, and I will also teach isolated site before I put a focus on site resolution. I put a resolution technique with a laminated printout that I give to the callers on the table, only to take it off the table generally for the rest of the caller school, because it's one of the getting to that Alaman left is important, but being able to site resolve at the sacrifice of good choreography is a bad teaching method. And unfortunately, that's where our focus was for way too long. Does anybody want to have a closer look at any of those potential pairings, to steal the phrase from Betsy, working with that, or look at that, or anything else you want to have a quick look at?
Mel, could you put your presentation in the chat so we can copy it?
I can. Give me a second here.
Thank you.
You just have to save it as a PDF file.
Then we won't have to deal with Mark's cryptic file names.
Deal with Mark's cryptic what?
File names.
Oh. Yeah. Okay, so let me just see if this will work. I got too many computer drives going on here. 2022, so we've got.
Mel, I think those 1/3 zeros are good. I use those at the caller schools as well. And I have a get out that I use from time to time, but instead of setting up a 0 line, I'll set up a line where the left-hand couple has their opposite and the right-hand couple has their partner by just setting it up by calling head star through, pass through, circle to a line, and then go through the 1/3 0, which I normally use as pass through, wheel and deal, double pass through, centers in, cast off 3/4, and do that 3 times. And then the ending, instead of doing an Alaman left, I prefer to call touch a quarter and just the boys pass through on the diagonal.
Hang on, Brian. Hang on, Brian. You all see that on your screen?
Yep.
Okay, so you've called head star through, centers pass through, circle to a line.
That's correct.
Put
yes.
in the chat. Can you put this on Tamination? So I figured I would.
Yeah. So I would then do the 1/3 0 3 times, which you don't need to go through again. But then for the get out, I would call everybody touch a quarter. And I don't know if Taminations allows you to do this or not, but then on the diagonal, the boys pass through.
Oh,
You might be able to get it by saying boys cross.
Right. Or just cross.
Yeah.
There we go.
Everybody swing your partner and promenade.
Or instead of right and left grand, you can say clap your hands, stop your feet, do a U-turn back and Alaman left.
You could, yep.
Dump your hands.
Can you go back to that spot? Can you go back to that spot just where you said everybody swing your partner?
Yep.
You're in a trade by formation. Half sashayed.
Your partner's beside you, not in front of you.
Yeah.
Well, yes, technically, but if you say boys pass through and swing, promenade, they're not going to swing the girl beside them.
No. Or if you call right and left grand, they're going to do it.
Yep, that works as well.
The key to delivery on that is if you look at this formation in stop timing, swing your partner, the outside dancers are making an inward turn, which is unusual, but it's not unusual when you're in motion, because when you think about square through 3 from lines, if you're half sashayed, yes, you're still doing the same thing. In this case, the boys are doing a diagonal pass, they're in motion. You would call that swing. Boys on the diagonal pass through and swing your partner. That lady looking out has nowhere to go except towards where her eyes are going to be contacted, and that's the man moving on her right side. So they're naturally going to turn inward to do that. Yes, it is a little bit of a sacrifice for body flow. It is a little bit of awkwardness because you're moving forward and then you've got to turn and bring his left hand, her right hand up. But I honestly don't have a problem with it. A right and left grand is fine. You could even do it, face partner turn through. You can do all sorts of things.
You could, a nice thing, if you would run into the right and left grand after the touch a quarter, the boy's left hand on your diagonal pull by would nicely work into the right and left grand then.
Yes.
It's also nice if, I don't know if you want to try this with your terminations, Mel, but this is a nice resolve to home, which works really, really nice using this sort of sequence. If you set up a 0 box, just head square through 4. Slide through, reverse flutter, then do your 3 times your 1/3 0 from here, and then after you've done that, you finish with everybody touch a quarter, and all the boys on the diagonal pass through. Go to your partner. Nice little surprise ending.
Could I just
put that in the chat too?
Could I just shift the conversation for a moment? I noticed in the new version of Zoom I've got, it's got an app button at the bottom along with your reactions, etc. Does that allow you to, have you tried loading terminations into that app? Does that work?
I don't know. I haven't actually experimented with it. It says you can add applications.
It's just a thought it might have been a convenient spot to have it for our sessions, yeah.
I don't think Taminations is an app. I think Taminations is a program. But I'm actually just looking at it as we're speaking, so. Discover one-on-one meetings. I'm going through the apps. I would have to play with this to.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack the meeting, yeah.
No, that's fine. It's fine. No, it's got a series of apps. Discover more apps on Marketplace. Let's have a look. Search your publisher app. And the answer is no. Taminations is not an app. It's a program that you can download, and this is only, it's got limited amount of apps where you can search for other apps. And basically
You're missing an S on the Taminations.
Yeah, but it should still search for the word. There's none.
But Taminations is an app. I've got it on the iPhone, and I also had it on the other one on the cell.
Can you go back to the Tamination window, please? Okay, a nice other ending from here is side space, everybody will back up, grand square.
Yep. Guarantee if you did that, they'd probably be more concentrated on their timing of the grand square though.
And the nice thing is coming back from the grand square, you can resolve it with walking straight into a right and left grand.
Exactly.